So the next step is to remove this plastic trim piece here. There are several plastic connectors here. I just use a forked prong like this. Pull these up. Prime. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fastening points. Sorry, 2 more investments. So let me just give you an overview of what we have to remove here. So this is the front fascia, this portion here, and this needs to come off. All the way from this portion here, the headlights stay in, all this trim comes off here, all the way around to this side. This black grill comes off here. And the issue we have to do is get the AC lines that reside up in this area here. We'll be able to do that very easily once we remove this particular fascia piece. So I've already removed this portion here. You saw me do that previously. I have there's Phillips head screws along here. There are clips in this area here that need to be removed, and there's a trim piece here that in the inner fender well that we will remove. There are bolts along the bottom, screws and bolts along the bottom that we will remove, and the entire piece comes off very easily. So this is the AC line that we are removing. This is the AC discharge line. This is a high pressure line. There are actually 2 of these. The steps I'm showing you apply to this line here as well as another AC high pressure line that wraps around this portion of the car, goes beneath the fuse block here, goes beneath a motor mount, wraps around to the back side of the car. So what we're doing right here, taking this front fascia trim piece off, will also apply not only to this line here, but also the other high discharge or high pressure line. If you're interested, I found this part on many different locations: Amazon, Rock Auto, Advance, AutoZone, many places. I bought this from Rock Auto. If you're interested, here's the part number for this particular piece here. Because there is a significant disparity between what the mechanical pressure gauges show and what the computer shows reading off this gauge here, there's nearly 30 pound or 30 psi difference. I'm going to go ahead and replace this high pressure gauge as well too. I'm going to go ahead now and remove the Phillips head screws that hold the top of the fascia piece on. Fascia piece, nose cone, whatever you want to say. Kind of going by memory from this, when I had to replace the other high pressure line that came through here. I do not believe the headlights have to come out, but I could be wrong. I can't recall completely. I'll figure it out as I go along. So as you can see, I have the car up on jack stands and I've removed the wheels and tires. And the reason for that is because this inner fender wheel well protector plastic piece needs to come out. And to be able to do that, there are several screws that need to be removed in bolts. There is a screw here, there's a screw here, 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 and here. And I remember, if I remember correctly, I can then pull this aside and reach up inside here. So just give you a little lesson learned here. When I replaced this the first time around, this hose or the other high pressure line, I left the front fascia off and I took the car for a test drive, and these were on, these pieces here were on. And what happened is that during the test drive going 15-25 miles an hour or so, the wind blew this pack, blew it into the tires here, pushed it back into the tires, and the tires wore holes through it. So now beneath the driver's side wheel well here, you're going to have to remove this screw and this screw, because that holds this inner plastic liner to the bottom of the bumper or fascia piece. Then there are additional bolts or screws we have to take off along the bottom here. So let me go ahead and get this done now. So this is the next bolt that needs to be removed. So the first 2 underneath here were screws, And this is an actual, I think it's a 10 millimeter. I'll tell you in just a second. Yeah, 10 millimeter bolt. So as you can see down here, there's AC refrigerant and dye all on the bottom of the car here. This particular line with that broken fitting there, all this out. This is over 2 pounds or over $90 worth of refrigerant that was placed in the car not more than 3 days ago. So now I've moved over to the passenger side. Move on to one of the screws that hold the trim piece on. Now I've moved on to the passenger inner fender well. Okay, in working on this, I realized that the entire inner fender well protector has to be removed because you'll see in just a second. So to be able to do that, in addition to the screws that we moved along here and down here, we also need to remove this one here. There's one right here. There's one here. There's one up here. And there's one right there as well too. And then you have to slide this out because the inner fender well slips behind this one. You have to slide it forward and then it will drop down. So let me go ahead and start removing these. Again, I just use this little nail puller here, pops these right out. There's another one here. You can also use a screwdriver on these. I found that's easier to do this. And this is the piece. Remember, this one stays in the car. This piece here will slide out. Here's another one. I try not to pull them all the way apart, although you can do that. It just makes it easier putting everything back together again. Sorry again. Have to pull this part back here so it's got to slide forward. It's going to slide forward just like this. There you go. And then we'll just lay it down. So you remove this inner fender well to do this. You have to remove the wiring harness from the fog light. You've also got to be able to remove 3 bolts, 7 millimeter bolts here, here, and here, and then we'll separate the fascia or the bottom fascia from the metal fender well, the metal fender. So, to do that, the next thing you have to do is this trim piece. There's plastic tabs on the back side of here. You have to pull this off to separate the plastic tabs. It's just like that. Now, if I remember correctly, we're getting very close to removing this. The front fascia here is about to be removed from the car. Everything's been done. Just to do a quick recap, we removed the plastic trim piece here. We removed Phillips head screws along here. We've removed the inner fender well on both sides. We've removed the 7 millimeter bolts on the side that attach the fascia to the metal fender, and we've also removed two 10 millimeter bolts on the bottom that fasten the bottom of the fascia bumper to the car as well too. So, if I remember correctly, this is about to come off here, so let's try this. Hopefully I've removed all the electrical connections. This line right here is the one we will be changing. This is the AC discharge line. This bottom line here is also another high pressure line. That one goes up here, comes up to this point right here, wraps around, goes under the fuse block. To remove this one, you have to remove the fuse block. You have to remove a motor mount that's right down here as well too, and then it snakes around to the back of the car and ends up all the way back in there. So if you have to remove that top high pressure line, what we've done with disassembling the front fascia will also be used for that, except you have some additional parts here to go ahead and remove. To access the bolt for the high pressure line that we're going to remove, and remember, one end is attaches directly to the air conditioning compressor. you need to have long extensions. So I have 3 actually linked together. And you can see here I have a universal joint or universal socket on bolt. It's 13 millimeter, or I didn't have one of those and actually had a 1/2 inch one that fit it. So that's what you can see right there. Let me back out, give you a better perspective where we're at. There's the oil filter. Again, I'll zoom in here to give you a closer or different perspective. Okay, so if you look closely here, low pressure line, here's the port to attach your AC recharge line to. Here is AC discharge line. Here is the high pressure switch that I will be replacing as well too. And if you can see just in between the two, here is the extension with the 1/2 inch or 13 millimeter universal joint socket that I have now setting on top of the nut that we will remove this fitting for. I am removing the bolt for the fitting AC discharge line. Just to show you that this is a 13 millimeter bolt, it fits exactly into this 1/2 inch socket. Again, just to reiterate, 2 high pressure lines. This line here goes down to the top of the compressor, the one we just removed there. This line here is the one that feeds, wraps around, has a high pressure port up on top, and then goes under the fuse block, under the engine mount, and around the back side of the engine. So we are looking to remove this one here. Also on this line is the high pressure sensor switch. I'm replacing it too. You have to disconnect the electrical connection to that. That's why I wasn't able to move it. Now I just did that with my other hand, and I am moving this out here. Hopefully I'll be able to fish it up through here. There it is. I had to get this pressure switch off of another line. This is the attachment point to the compressor. This is the AC high pressure sensor switch. My mechanic who initially refilled it told me that this switch was giving information to the computer that was 30 psi off of what his mechanical gauges were showing. And he told me his mechanical gauges are extremely accurate and he's more apt to think that this is wrong. So we were replacing this as well too. And if you look, this is the section that I believe was damaged and leaking. Here's a shot of the 2 hoses side by side. The original hose is at the top of the frame. This is though the replacement hose is slightly longer, about 2 inches. Hopefully that won't be a factor. I will also install the pressure switch on the replacement line before I put it back in place. It is pretty difficult to get to. So I'm about to replace the high pressure switch. The new one. It already has an O-ring installed on the fitting here. Simply screw it on. I'll hand tighten it. 14 millimeter wrench. Each end of the hose has a rubber cap protector on it. I'm going to keep that on as I thread this through the narrow spaces in the engine compartment to make sure that I get no dirt or contaminants into it. So I've already removed the plastic or the rubber cap, protective cap. I need to get it in this hole right here, which I did. Now I need to get the bolt back in this hole, which I'm not sure if I could do that from this vantage point. There we go. There, I just reattached the electrical connection to the high pressure cutoff switch. So here I am ready to reattach both hoses. Here's a rubber cap. You remove that. I want to go slowly in here. I do not want to cross thread these aluminum threads into this wheel. One thing I want to make sure of is that the rubber portion of this hose does not contact or come in close contact with any other piece in here. That's what happened to the other high pressure hose that when it ruptured on me. So I will go through here to make sure that it's nowhere near in contact, especially since it's a little longer than the original piece. And if it is, I will wrap additional hosing around it and secure it with zip ties. And I'll let you know if I do that.